Volkswagen Touareg NF, FL. As usual, when dealing with Volkswagen, the lion's share of interest is captured by motors. In the case of the Touareg, you will have to talk about the weak points of two 6-cylinder units and two V8s. The light-fuel 3.6 FSI of the EA360 series lost the war of performance and popularity to the 3-liter diesel, but there are clearly fewer problems from it, and the design is not bad for those who prefer something original and likes to show off his knowledge in the field of engine building, talking about a VR-shaped design with one-cylinder head and a chain located behind the engine. Fortunately, the chain on this motor will not ring before 250,000, and the oil seal most often surrenders the front. It's coming. The owners of the Volkswagen Touareg with 3.6 FSI are worried mainly about the source popular for VAG, oil leaks, and periodic failure of the electric pump. By the way, changing the antifreeze before the regulations will extend the life of the pump, which in principle applies to the oil and the resource of the motor itself, which is capable of driving 500 TkM without problems of the piston group. And this is quite an outstanding indicator in the era of 100,000ers. Piston diesel engines 3.0 TDI will also not cause trouble, but the overall picture of reliability is clearly worse than a gasoline unit. Seriously spoiled the statistics and undermined the confidence of the extremely sensitive to the quality of diesel fuel injection pump, which was installed on the first versions. The most annoying thing is that the chips from the pump in a short time also destroy the nozzles. Therefore, the owners who have lost the guarantee are very upset at the service station when they hear the amount of repairs for several 100,000 wooden ones. A little later, the VAG sheep remembered that the client also needed to be retained. The situation was corrected by the modernization of the high-pressure fuel pump, after which the engine became just a good boy, which only needs to periodically wipe the oil and antifreeze snot, especially between the two halves of the unit, where the little villain, the oil cooler, hides from the eyes of the owner. The turbine of the 3-liter TDI already after the first 100 begins to drive oil into the manifold, into the tail, and into the main. However, the total resource of the snail is at least 250 TkM, which means that the pistons and intake and exhaust lines after the 100,000th milestone will be actively covered with soot. Perhaps it is at this moment that it is better to remove the EGR and do the first decarbonization. Lots of freezes? Then don't take diesel at all. The two remaining 8-cylinder V-shaped giants 4.1 TDI and 4.2 FSI do not bother Touareg owners with unnecessary problems. Seniors in the line, after all. Able to depart the same 500 TkM without major misses. It is a pity that the common disease with electric pumps did not spare these, and every sense of the healthy, too. The Eisen 0C8 8-speed automatic is loved for a solid margin of safety and resource, no matter what engine the box has to work with. Chronic pinching in third and fifth gear should not be taken as a pathology. This behavior usually means that it's time to run for fresh oil, reflash the brains, and, at the same time, make an adaptation. Too bad it didn't work for everyone. Such lucky ones had to change the valve body assembly because there are no high-quality repair kits for the 0C8 yet. There is nothing to worry about friction clutches and planetary gears. They are designed for a torque of 1,000 Newton meters. As we know, two types of all-wheel drive are provided for the Volkswagen Touareg: urban 4-motion with a self-blocking center differential and off-road 4X motion with forced locking of the center, a reduction in a number of gears, and with a rear axle differential lock, which people received for a surcharge. Regardless of the type of transmission chosen, an oil change in all its nodes is desirable every 50 TkM. A big thank you for this will be said by the front gearbox, which in this entire system was known as the weakest link and for some owners died ingloriously before the first 100 TkM it started to buzz. Shaft support bearings usually go into consumption. However, no matter how sad it may sound, it will not work to change them. You will have to look for the gearbox assembly. Still, the card-end shafts served as the real pranksters. What are ordinary motorists usually used to doing when vibration appears on the track? That's right, wheel balancing. That's just Touareg teaches you to first check whether all the balancing weights are left on the universal joints and, if the diagnosis is confirmed, look for a service with the appropriate stand. Tire fitters are of no help here. Most often, the nerves of Volkswagen Touareg owners are tickled by the air suspension, which is loved for its contribution to driving performance and hated because in our conditions the first problems usually arise before the 100,000 mark. Condensation and sub-zero temperatures are often the cause of bashful lowering on the belly. In short, the Russian uncompromising winter. The colder the climate, the worse. The most annoying thing is that you never know when and where it will explode. It can be both O-rings on cylinders and cuffs of the valve system. The cost of repair in both cases will be approximately the same. The main thing is that the compressor does not go to rest. This is where it will be expensive. Fortunately, this time the pump is reliably protected by a fuse that blows in any emergency. Needless to say, after knocking out it would be at least unreasonable to put a wire jumper. If such thoughts arise at all, it is best to visit a good psychotherapist first. The air suspension, as a complex set of rubber elements, does not like long idle times. The cuffs in the block and the rings on the cylinders shrink, which is why the second-generation Touareg worships on the problem side just like cats lie on the owner's sore spot. You just need to understand that pets do this not because they want to help in recovery, it's just the warmest there. You should not expect anything good from the Touareg either. The news that the Spring SUV is also able to change the clearance for Mini, I think, will be unexpected. True, there are several nuances. Firstly, this happens without the will of the owner, and secondly, the ground clearance can only decrease. Perhaps some thought that we would talk about the rapid sagging of the springs, but no, there are no questions for them in this regard, but the loss of part of the turns is quite likely, especially for those who do not change shock absorbers on time. The rest of the chassis, namely the assorted levers, did not distinguish themselves by anything outstanding. The rear hydraulically filled silent blocks of the front lower arms live for about 70 to 80 TkM. After the same amount, the rubber bands of the upper aluminum levers also become unusable. The rear part of the suspension is the most reliable of all. 200,000 kilometers works without fatigue and unnecessary noise. Here, the second-generation Touareg is handsome. The steering is hyper-survivable. It doesn't ask for a very long time to eat and drink. However, the situation is similar with the braking system, with the only difference that a creaky rear ride can make the owners of budget cars blush. The Touareg NF has a lot of auxiliary equipment and comfort systems, otherwise they would not love it the way they love it. Of course, some functions periodically fail and force the brains of auto electricians and diagnosticians to strain their brains to determine the exact cause of the failure of a particular system. Take, for example, the breakdown of keyless entry. Here, the wiring in the door handle may rot and fall off, or the transistor in the control unit may burn out. First you have to take everything apart. A lot of brains were also eaten out by an autonomous heater with the name Eberspecher Hydronic 2, which is not the most harmonious for our mentality, with its frequent breakdowns of the pump and oxidation of the contacts of the control unit. After buying a VW Touareg 2, auto electricians will idolize you. True, some operations are within the power of the layman. For example, without unnecessary nerves, you can deal with the failure of the central locking button yourself. You only have to partially disassemble the skin. There were no other weak points in the electrics of the Volkswagen Touareg, unless, of course, we assumed that the resource of the native generator leaves much to be desired, about 150 TkM. There are no questions about the wear resistance of materials either. I would even say that there are only pluses here. Only crickets periodically reviving throughout the cabin can disappoint, which is rather strange for materials of such high quality. After the first 100,000 kilometers, the first-generation Touareg looks like new. No scuffs, no dents, even scratching something is not so easy. Therefore, when determining the mileage by indirect signs, it will be necessary to apply the standards of premium cars to it. The mileage is only given out by glossy interior elements, the gradually collapsed lateral support of the driver's seat and the brake pedal pad that is grinded in the corner, which is quickly and inexpensively changed by outbids. Applicants for used cars should remember that adjusting the odometer does not cause difficulties, and the information written in the control unit's EDC, automatic transmission, is also quite easy and inexpensive to change, and outbid selling Touareg often do not skimp on high-quality reeling, such that it will be extremely difficult to bring the deceiver to clean water by any electronic methods, and all that remains is to rely on the ability to correctly assess indirect signs, as well as additionally go through the maintenance databases with service data. You shouldn't worry too much about the second-generation Touareg body. The SUV doesn't even visit the notorious fogging of optics. Given that most of the body panels are galvanized, chips do not appear as intensely as on the previous generation or on the younger Volkswagen models. But corrosion without obstacles eats into the steel bowels of the tailgate, and also slowly with pleasure from year to year absorbs the space of the roof if the paintwork has been damaged on that one. Those who think that owners with a panoramic roof are more fortunate are also too early to rejoice. It's better to properly paint the body panel once than to repair the electric sunroof or fix leaks flooding the cabin. You can get rid of these problems only by preventive lubrication of the mechanism and cleaning of the panorama drains. But who even thinks about it until the first problems come? In general, buying a used Volkswagen Touareg is a solid reason for bargaining with the seller. There is always something to complain about, and not just cosmetically, but seriously, with the argumentation of subsequent costs. Well-maintained options appear on the market no more often than truffles in a forest near Moscow. Before purchasing, think 3 times, calculate possible problems, and correctly budget for maintenance, which will be very problematic to do, since some expensive breakdowns are unpredictable. It's also stupid to think that a car can break down all of the above at once. It's not such a bucket as it might seem at first. You just need to understand that Touareg is like a loan, instant joy, comfort, which will need to be gradually, timely, and steadily paid with interest. And, unlike most competitors, it will slowly save on fuel so that you can pay for subsequent repairs. Let's be frank. If you need an SUV, and not just an urban Papavaz with the function of export to nature, then the VW Touareg, even with 4X motion, is not at all the best choice. It's not like he'll get bogged down in the first puddle. No. Just the same, with cross-country ability, he is in full order. Simply, the forest is branches, snags, a winch, a broken cable, broken bumpers, etc. It's a pity to bathe in puddles of an expensive handsome man stuffed with electronics. Brutal, I would even say, wooden Mitsubishi Pajero in this path will be much more harmonious. It will cost less, it's cheap to maintain, and there are fewer killed cars on sale. Well, or Nissan Patrol, since there is absolutely no way without a minimum level of comfort. The illiquid Korean Kia Mojave can also be dragged here. The Mercedes Italian-American Jeep Grand Cherokee is similar in all respects to the German, while being beautiful and extraordinary, but the choice of engines is small and it will be much more difficult to sell it illiquid. If the maintenance costs of the Touareg didn't scare you, then perhaps you should take a closer look at the used British Land Rover Discovery. It will definitely kick all the extra money out of you, while driving you into a trance with a lulling air suspension. Among the auxiliary equipment, the first thing they begin to snot is the air conditioner tubes, which is why you often have to fill the system with Freon or give the sleeves for repair for recrimping. Electrical breakdowns also occur in the Hyundai Santa Fe 3. It happens that the contact is lost in the power button block of the driver's seat. However, parking sensors and a rear view camera most often fail. The wiring in the rear bumper area is practically not protected from dirt, which is why the contact of one or another system is lost in the disinterest of Korean engineers to do it right. It is clear that any more or less intelligible auto electrician will solve this problem within an hour, but due to its mass nature, the malfunction spoils the overall picture of the car. The standard audio system let us down even more. You can also heal. However, only a select few are taken for soldering and replacing the board, and it is not a fact that there are such people in your city. If you already found a doctor, then do not forget to reflash the GU for Android and the music will sound in new colors. The practice of selecting used Hyundai Santa Fe DM suggests that even after 100,000 kilometers, most cars are still fresh and ready to drive at least the same amount. Almost all owners prefer to prevent a problem with all-wheel drive rather than change large components later. The car is a large family car, so there are few broken options, and those that were painted outside the factory are usually repaired purely cosmetically. The body, optics, and glazing in general can withstand long runs well. Salon Santa Fe after 100,000 kilometers is almost always misleading with its ambiguity. The steering wheel looks like 300,000, the pedal assembly looks like 50,000 kilometers, and the leather driver's seat looks like 100,000. In general, apart from the steering wheel, the car looks like a used, but still very peppy car. Resellers in this model also sometimes see promising profits. However, potential risks due to the soar of the all-wheel drive clearly scare away businessmen. One way or another, buying a car from outbid is not worth it.